Lots to do over the next 60 minutes, even busier than normal, which we'll get to here. What's dominating the news of the day is this thing that we'll get to here in the big story. But there is a lot of news to talk about. Coming up a little later on, a settlement in the antitrust lawsuit, Front Row Sports, 23XI Racing, and NASCAR. I had planned to do a whole segment on how bad this antitrust case was for NASCAR, and then the two sides settle. So Sam Yarnell and I will have some thoughts on that. There is news to get to from football. Interesting comments made yesterday by a couple of stars of the league, Travis Kelce and Joe Burrow. I want to read between the lines a bit in what they're saying, because I think it's an important conversation to have on both of them. We'll do that coming up a little later on. Bill Bender normally joins us from the Sporting News on Mondays to talk about college football. He was on assignment on Monday, so he couldn't talk with us. But there is a lot to talk about in college football. Obviously, Notre Dame and what has taken place there over the last 4 days since the college football playoff final bracket and rankings were announced. There's that to get into, a whole bunch from college football, including what we're about to talk about right now in the big story. And the big story on this Thursday is Sherrone Moore. And who saw this coming? I mean, look, outside, the conspiracy theory websites and message boards that fans flock to complain about their favorite team. 1 out of every 100 things you read as rumor on a message board wind up being true. Well, this was the 1 in 100. Sherrone Moore yesterday was fired for cause, and I think it's important to mention that. We'll get into that here in a second, by the University of Michigan for an inappropriate relationship with a staffer at the university. Now, we're still getting all the details. And again, there's a lot of things that I've been told sort of off the record, secondhand, from people that know what's going on at Michigan about this entire case. And I'm not going to get into all of it today because, frankly, a lot of it is still yet to be substantiated. What we do know is Sherrone Moore, according to Ward Manual and the powers that be at the University of Michigan, which is why he was fired for cause, was carrying on an inappropriate relationship with somebody at the university. Now, keep in mind, Sherrone Moore is married. Sherrone Moore has 3 kids. And again, that's more of a moral conversation than it is a legal or a reason for the school to fire him conversation. The reason they're firing him isn't because he cheated on his wife. They're firing him because he allegedly had a relationship with a staffer at the university where he works. Then the story got more complicated. Sherrone Moore was arrested a short time after being fired by the university because he's being investigated on a potential assault charge. Now, Dan Wetzel with ESPN, so credit to him, who's had great reporting on this from the get-go, says no charges are expected to be filed on Thursday, but he is still being held by authorities. They could probably hold him for up to a certain amount of time before they have to press charges. I watch enough Law & Order SVU, you start to figure these things out. But now it gets into the much larger conversation of the culture at Michigan. A culture in which it started with Jim Harbaugh and everything that transpired under his watch, to handing off the program to one of his subordinates in Sherrone Moore, and where we are today. And that's the big question, is how does this program go forward? How does this university go forward when it comes to sort of cleaning up its act? How is it going to sort of convince people, convince boosters, convince people pouring money into NIL, convince the players at the university to stay, convincing players not to jump into the transfer portal and leave the cupboard bare in this offseason for Michigan football? Bryce Underwood, I'm talking about you. How do you do that now if you're a school that's had back-to-back issues with your head coaches? From Jim Harbaugh, who was able to bolt to the NFL after winning a national championship under a cloud of controversy, and now with Sherrone Moore. These are big questions, and I don't know if Ward Manuel's the guy that ultimately should be the one in place to answer those questions. That's something that the powers that be at a much higher pay grade than even Ward Manuel are going to have to figure out, because he's overseen this period of Michigan football, which, while it has a national championship, it comes with a lot of baggage. Then there's Sherrone Moore himself. And what happens to him? He's 38 years old. He's 38 years old. It reeks of the Ime Udoka situation all over again, doesn't it? It feels like we're talking about a very similar story. A coach on the come, a coach on the rise. This opportunity at Michigan, I think he went 18-8 over his 2 seasons in 1 game there. He beat Ohio State, which is always one of the big things you have to do if you're in that position. What happens to Sherrone Moore? We saw Ime Udoka, and he was able to take a year off, and then the Houston Rockets were waiting there and said, hey, we'll hire you. Is that opportunity going to be there for Sherrone Moore? It's certainly not going to be at the collegiate level, at least you wouldn't think. I have to wonder if what this means for a guy that's just 38 years old. How do you recover from something like this? I've heard a lot of people suggest that Jim Harbaugh should be the first one to lend a hand to Sherrone Moore. Will Jim Harbaugh do that? Because Sherrone Moore certainly had to pick up the pieces after Jim Harbaugh left things in tatters at the University of Michigan. Will Jim Harbaugh now return the favor and welcome Sherrone Moore into his fold? Can he do that? Does he have enough clout? Has he had enough success in the NFL, enough success with the Los Angeles Chargers that maybe next season he could bring in Sherrone Moore to try and help repair his image? There are a lot of details that are going to come out in the coming hours and days on this. We're only in chapter 1 of what's probably going to be a very long and complicated book on the final days of Sherrone Moore at Michigan. Probably lawsuits with him trying to get the money that he's owed by the university, that they now don't have to pay him because they fired him with cause. We'll continue to follow it, and we'll continue to discuss it coming up in a couple of minutes. Our friend Bill Bender from the Sporting News talks college football with us next. Welcome back to the show. Hope you're all having a great Thursday. Probably a better Thursday than Sherrone Moore. We usually talk to this guy on Mondays, talk college football. He was on assignment this week. I was planning to give him the week off. And then the you-know-what hit the fan. Bill Bender is here from the Sporting News. All right, Bill, cut the music here, guys. Here's the thing. I gotta ask you. You're inside the belly of the beast in college football. You're in Big Ten country. Did anybody have a whiff that this was out there? That this story was percolating somewhere? Sometimes there's things I'm sure you can't tell us that you hear in certain circles. Did anybody know this thing with Sherrone Moore was going on?
Well, I mean, there was some message board material out there in the last couple of weeks where you're kind of like, major bombshell coming at Michigan, that kind of stuff. And you just don't know what's true and untrue sometimes, so you wait to confirm it. But I mean, if something like this was going on behind closed doors, chances are people knew about it. And I'm speculating a little bit because it all came when things like that happen. And, you have what did they call it? An inappropriate relationship, I guess is the phrase we have to use. That people end up knowing. And then when it comes out, these things happen. You know what I mean? It blows up for everyone. And, in Sherrone Moore's case, obviously, without getting into the details of him being detained last night, I mean, there's more salacious things are going to come out, and it's going to get much worse for him, I think, and for Michigan all the way up through probably athletic director Ward Manuel, who would be next on the hot seat when when something like this happens on your watch. Your job becomes in trouble too.
Well, because the obvious question here is, if they had beaten Ohio State, if they had made the playoffs, would they have let him coach? Would they have just let this go? Is this a product of sort of the mediocrity of the last 2 years combined with this? How much would they have allowed to happen? Those are fair questions to ask.
Yeah, well, and it's also program in turmoil. I think the biggest hit for Michigan's reputation is you come off the Harbaugh era, which obviously there was back-to-back NCAA investigations. You get off, so to speak, on the Connor Stallions case. You don't get hammered by the NCAA, but I think this is the hammer now.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Not like on the field, but it just proves that you trying to keep the Harbaugh era going through Sherrone Moore was a huge mistake. And that's why I think there's 0.0 chance that they hired Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator, that while he's a hell of a football coach, you can't prolong the Harbaugh era. You have to break free from that now. It's caused you suspensions, scandals, embarrassments, stains on a national championship run that, while doesn't have an asterisk, still means something, but it'll always have all of these things attached to it. I likened it to the montage at the end of a 30 for 30 when they say here's everything that went wrong after the success. That's where we're at right now, and it's getting uglier.
Bill, I am curious from a Michigan perspective and from a football perspective. We're talking about kind of the next steps. There was a prediction market that went up for this yesterday, and as weird as it was, Kalen DeBoer was the favorite. Is there any, I know we talked, there was some smoke about him potentially thinking about the Penn State job. Is there any way in your mind that Kalen DeBoer leaves Alabama to go to Michigan? And do you think that, Michigan has any idea already of who they may be searching for? You figure they don't do this sort of firing at this time, regardless of the investigation within the coaching cycle, if they didn't already have their sights set on somebody, right?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, nobody plans for something like this, but I would say Kalen DeBoer will be one of their first calls, and should be. I mean, this is the same coach that Alabama fans wanted fired after the first game. Now, who I've talked to, the Crimson Tide like Kalen. They're not ready to fire him or anything like that. He did
or love, though.
Well, I mean, those are two different things, right?
Well, but, I mean, I like Sam. I don't love Sam. Wow.
I love Sam. I love both you guys, Jason. So I love everybody. But, I get what you're saying there. But
I have some more eggnog. Hold on.
It's a little early. But it's if I'm Michigan, I do make that call, explore it. The way I've been phrasing it, you call Kalen DeBoer, Brian Kelly, you see what he's doing on the golf course, and then you probably end up with, and here's my prediction, even though there's nothing behind it, you probably end up with somebody like Dan Mullen, who isn't in the Power Four right now, had a good season, might be tempted to come up, great play caller, and did a nice job at UNLV. That's the kind of coach I think they're going to get, somebody like that, if that makes sense.
It feels like it has to be somebody squeaky clean now. I mean, you really can't go any other way, can you?
Well, nobody really is all the way squeaky clean anyway, but I get what you're saying. Pat Fitzgerald's already at Michigan State too, and that would have been a logical hire, though, he just went through something, even though he was wrongfully terminated. It is a weird situation, but Michigan needs to get this one right. I mean, they didn't get it right after Harbaugh. They hired Sherrone Moore late in that cycle too. And I think that was part of the reason they hired him in the first place. But it's a interesting part for the program, because when Lloyd Carr left, point this out all the time. And here's an interesting comparison. In 1995, Gary Mueller was fired. He had a drunken incident in a bar, and he had misdemeanor charges. He was fired by Michigan. They hired Lloyd Carr, and it worked out because Lloyd gave them 11, 12 years of stability. And then Rich Rod and Brady Hoke happened. And don't think for a second that can't happen to Michigan again. The bad news, Jason, is Matt Campbell was probably the guy. And he would probably be the best fit for Michigan. He's coaching at Penn State. It's all about timing.
Do they trust Ward Manuel to make this decision?
I mean, that's the next step to me. We'll see what happens with Ward Manuel in this job. I think
former UConn AD, by the way.
I know, yeah, and obviously Ward. I've been around him. He's been on the playoff committee. He's had some ups and downs as the athletic director, but at the end of the day, he does have a national championship there in football, and they did make the right hire in basketball. I mean, there's no question. It's very similar. The end of the Juwan Howard era was really ugly for Michigan, and now they're out there scoring 80 and 90 points. That Dusty May can't coach the football team, though. He has to coach the basketball team. He was the right hire.
Let me tell you, I only have 20 seconds here. It's going to be fascinating to watch what happens next for Sherrone Moore. Because Ime Udoka sat out a year and then was back in the NBA coaching the Houston Rockets. I don't know if Sherrone Moore can return to college football with something like this on him, but I would just wonder what it means for his coaching legacy or his coaching future overall. He's only 38 years old. We'll find out. Talking with Bill Bender, Sporting News. We got more to get to on the college football with him next. Continuing the conversation on college football with the one and only Bill Bender, Sporting News, college football writer. Hangs out with us on the show. Just to put a bow on all of this, and then there's a lot that I want to get to in a very short amount of time. Does Sherrone Moore coach again somewhere that matters? I'm not talking like D2 or FCS. Not that those places don't matter, but you get my drift.
It'll depend on what the results of him being detained are. If he's charged with a serious crime, the answer would probably be no. And you don't want to speculate on what those allegations might be. Now, if this is, rumor and, like I said, message board material, maybe. Art Briles is coaching again. Like you said, it happened. Not at a major university.
Look, I have sources too, and what I'm hearing is this was, and again, this is just what I'm hearing, is this was him going home, to an angry wife, and it might have been a dust up, but I don't think this is going to rise to the level of something that he's not coaching anywhere ever again because of it. But again, it remains to be seen.
Bill, what does it mean for Bryce Underwood looking ahead towards next year? This is a Michigan team that just got the #1 recruit in the nation, or top five recruit in the nation, I should say, last season. Now this all happens. What do you make of Bryce Underwood's chances to enter the portal?
I think it's secondary right now. You don't hire a coach based on one player. If Bryce Underwood leaves, Bryce Underwood leaves. It's not like he had a monster season. But they do, if Bryce Underwood's going to stay and some of the recruits around him are going to stay, then yes, they need to hire a coach that's going to shift their offense it's got to go away from the ground and pound Harbaugh era. They've got to be able to throw the ball. They've got to find receivers. You don't get a quarterback for whatever that NIL number was, $5 million, $4 million, and have the passing stats that he has. That happens with freshman QBs in development. I'm not less worried about that, but you have to surround him with success and let him cook, as the kids like to say. And if he doesn't do it there, then he might end up at LSU with Lane. But again, I wouldn't hire my next coach based on one recruit that might or might not be there within, 2 years.
Move to Notre Dame. I just before we get into the Irish and how, Pete Bavacqua and all these guys are handling this and the reaction to it. On the Marcus Freeman stuff, is it just smoke, this idea of there being an NFL job appealing enough to lure him away like the Giants? Or is ND going to do everything it has to keep him in place?
I think those are rumors. You never know. You and I went back and forth a little bit about Notre Dame on Sunday. I think it's absurd they were left out. I just absolutely absurd. And their statement not to play in a bowl game, I can meet you halfway there. I understand why they did it. I don't think it's right from the money standpoint, but it seems to be like a not so subtle protest at ESPN. If we're being honest about it, they say, okay, you can have your Pop-Tarts bowl. We'll stay home. Talked to Leonard Moore on Monday at the Nagurski banquet, and what a classy kid he was. You could tell he wanted to say things, but he just said, man, it's not right, or that kind of thing that kids would say. But he handled it with a lot of dignity and class, and that's not a surprise. He's one of the best defensive players in the country.
In your mind, Bill, was Alabama the odd team out that should have been left out instead of Notre Dame?
Yeah, and it would have been awesome if they did, because then we could throw into question the value of these conference championship games. And they could have pitched to their fit, which would have been the theme of their fit would have been, well, we put it on the line at an SEC championship game. Then we can counter and say, okay, let's get rid of these, because Greg Sankey probably would have done that. and it would have moved the game forward. Instead, we took the easy route. We leave out the Irish. We still crow about, hey, join a conference. Well, guess what? The conference just crowned a 5-loss champion, number one. And that same conference ran a 48-hour promo playing the Miami Notre Dame game on TV. You can't tell me Notre Dame doesn't have a right to be mad about that, given what they add to the conference in football and those other sports.
But isn't that also playing us for fools, or playing the committee for fools, to say them playing the conference championship game, the ACC playing, not playing the conference championship game, but Notre Dame, Miami? You really think that matters? Really? You think they're not putting in Notre Dame because of that? Come on.
Well, I think the conference championship game?
No, you were saying that the ACC was playing on a loop Notre Dame, Miami to politic for Miami. The conference, the playoff committee doesn't care about that crap.
They don't, but there's still politics in the committee room.
There's always politics, though. There's politics every year in this.
Well, my conspiracy theory would be, had Virginia won the game, Notre Dame would have got in, and Miami wouldn't have, because they had to have an ACC team in the field. That's my counter to that. And the two pushbacks I'm getting are, one, from my friends, that I have a lot of friends that root for Notre Dame. They're saying, why are JMU and Tulane in the playoff? And that's going to come to a head if both of those teams get blown out in a week. We're all going to wonder that question.
Dusted.
Yeah, those are the rules. I get that we got to go 5 highest conference ranked champions, but why can't we just do 12 best teams? We'd rather be and we can all take a lie detector test, Jason, but you, me, Sam, everyone.
No, maybe not Sam, because he's Mr. JMU. He's president of the booster. He's president of the booster club over there.
Sam is exempt, but most people, if they take a lie detector test, be like, would you rather be watching Texas, Oregon, and Notre Dame and Ole Miss right now? And I know what the answer to that question is.
And I understand that, but I also think, Bill, that it's part of the fabric of what makes college sports great, that you have these, lower conference champions who actually won 11 games of their schedule that deserve to be in this college football playoff, instead of giving a participation trophy to the 5th place SEC team that happened to lose 4 games this season. But regardless, Bill, we've got a game coming up this weekend, and it's one of the most historic in our nation's history. Army and Navy, I'll be betting the under, but does Army have a chance in this game? Navy's been good all year.
Yeah, it's Army-Navy. Anybody has a chance in that game. They go back and forth. They've had, it's one of the best games. I love watching it. I talked to Gary Danielson about it yesterday. It's going to be a really fun matchup. And I think, the passion, the pageantry, I'm into all that. One of the traditions I have, my son and Grant and I will sit down and watch it. And if there's nothing else going on in college football, we sit down and watch it. We enjoy it. And I just the passion, something Gary told me yesterday. He said, when I first covered that game, the kids would tell me, grade us on a curve. Don't just be nice because we're servicemen, grade us like football players. And I always appreciate that. Talked to Blake Horvath earlier this year. I like Navy in the game, but it'll be fun.
Bill Bender, Sporting News, does a terrific job. Thank you. Yeoman's work from you today, sir.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome back to this Thursday edition of the show. Switch gears to the NFL. A couple of sound bites that got my attention on Wednesday. Sam Yarnell rejoins us. Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, the New Heights podcast. Because everybody's got a podcast, except Sam, apparently. Everybody's got a podcast. I mean, you're part of this one. I know you're on this show, but you don't have the Sam Yarnell podcast, which I think would be actually pretty funny, entertaining to say the least. See, there you go. I'm politicking for you to get your own podcast, Sam. So Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce, New Heights podcast. Travis Kelce struggling for answers on his own struggles. Listen.
I've always had the answers in years past, and this year I just can't find them. And I keep thinking, if I show up to work and I put in the work and I fix the issues through my practice habits and through perfecting the game plan and my fundamentals and what I'm being taught, and go out there and try and play my ass off for my guys next to me, it's all going to come together like it has in years past. And this year is just not, man.
Sam Yarnell, your reaction to Travis Kelce. It sounds like a guy I'm just reading between the lines. Sounds like a guy who's going to hang it up at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's over after this year. You look at the contract, and quite frankly, Jason, I think we're at a point, and I mean, you just base it on his performance lately, where if the Chiefs weren't in the position where they are, right, out of the playoffs, season over, you would have to think if this team were any semblance of a competitive football team right now, they would cut ties with Travis Kelce. It would save them copious amounts of money, and he's playing far below replacement level, let alone the level of Noah Gray, who's another tight end who they roster, right? So, like, yeah, he's fortunate, I guess, in some regards, because they aren't competitive this year. They won't be competitive the rest of the year. So he can kind of just play out, his final games and, do a mini little farewell tour at the end of this season. But I would be shocked if he got another contract in the NFL, quite frankly, just because of how he's played this season, but also because of these words that he's now somehow conveniently saying on his podcast. Also, you talk about the guy, though, he's a Hall of Famer, right? If he hangs it up after this year, he'll be in the Hall of Fame in 2031. It'll be as easy as that. He'll be on the first ballot. No question in my mind, Jason. But yeah, it isn't his year. This is a tough way for a great tight end's career to end, but it's how it has to.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like it's the end, and it feels like there's that level of acceptance on his part. When you can't find the answers on how to fix something, and you're at his age, his stage of his career, everything you've accomplished, everything else you have going on in your life on the side, it just all adds up to the pieces in place for him to say at the end of the year, okay, this has been a fun ride. I'm not going to be here for whatever this rebuilding or this regrouping stage of the Kansas City Chiefs is going to look like. And frankly, I think they probably would let him go at the end of the season. Yeah, real quick.
You said a very key thing there, right? Is outside life, and let's call a spade, and the Swifties are welcome to come for me. But since he started dating Taylor Swift, his career has fallen off a cliff.
I thought about
He's back-to-back suffering career lows in receiving yards outside of his rookie season, where he played one single game that he didn't start, right? So any season where he's played more than 2 games, career lows across the board, right? It's just not good for Travis Kelce. He's clearly been distracted by his outside life, and he's ready to start that life. It's okay.
I think it's the combination of that plus, his age and where he is at this, at this stage of his life. I think it's a combination of the things. All right, Joe Burrow. Because this one was alarming to me. Speaking to the media yesterday about the grind of the NFL season.
If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for? So that's the mindset I'm trying to bring to the table.
What was the changing point?
Changing point. I'm not sure there was a singular moment or of time. It's just a reflection on a lot of things that I've done and been through in my career. I think I've been through more than most, and it's certainly not easy on the brain or the body. So just trying to have fun doing it again.
You seem like there's something on your mind, or maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it seemed frustrating.
There's just a lot of things going on right now.
Football related, personally?
All the above.
That very last part is the most telling. There's something going on here, Sam. And look, we don't know what his mental state is, and this is getting into a whole nother realm. Athletes and mental fragility, and athletes opening up about some of the things going on with them mentally. This sounds like a guy that's just had it, whether it's because of the injuries, what the team's putting around him, or what the organization's putting around him. This sounds like a guy that's just had it.
Yeah, so I'm now convinced that the Bengals have looked into trading Joe Burrow. This seems to be the result of an ownership conversation with him. Because if you look at his contract year over year, they save dozens of millions of dollars each year where they trade him, whether it be before or after June 1st. In my mind, it means one thing. They're looking at trading Joe Burrow, and they told him that they're looking at trading him. It's how this franchise operates financially, right? Save where you can, and right now that means cutting ties with Joe Burrow.
I wonder if he'd be okay with that, Sam.
Me too, but it doesn't sound like it.
No, not in the moment. But I wonder when he has a chance to take a deep breath after the season, if there might be a better situation out there for him. That's a possibility as well.
Is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Minnesota.
We're coming back. NASCAR, a bit of a mess with Michael Jordan right now. Welcome back to the show. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. We'll get into the NBA Cup. A hell of a Final Four setup out here in Las Vegas for the NBA Cup. Knicks, Magic, they don't like each other very much. Especially when Desmond Bane is playing dodgeball with certain Knicks players. And then the Spurs and the Thunder will go at it in the other semifinal out here in Vegas. So good times. Good. Hopefully Victor Wembanyama comes back for that. So we'll get into that. We've also got news from baseball, a big signing at the winter meetings, and a Thursday night NFL preview. But Sam Yarnell, I had planned all week to talk about this story. I was ready to dig head into it. And you see the top of the screen because literally right before we started taping today's show, news came on the Michael Jordan NASCAR lawsuit. I was having such a good day. I had this whole show planned perfect. Quick post-production on the show today. Everything was going to be great. And then NASCAR and Michael Jordan, they settled. So we've got some juicy details of what was going on in this lawsuit and in this trial, but it's all over now. It's all going to get swept under the rug because NASCAR and Michael Jordan. And here's my biggest point about all of this, in this whole thing even being settled. There was only one person, and it wasn't Joe Gibbs, and it wasn't Richard Childress, and it wasn't Penske and all these different huge faces and figures of NASCAR that could bring NASCAR to its knees and force them to ultimately settle this. There was only one person powerful enough to do it. And whenever we talk about the greatness of Michael Jordan on the floor and all these different things, we always forget about Michael Jordan, the businessman, the Air Jordan brand, everything he's done, bringing himself into NASCAR and injecting life into that sport. We forget about Jordan, the businessman. And there was only one guy capable of bringing this issue to the forefront of charters, and it was Michael Jordan, Sam Yarnell. It wasn't one of these NASCAR legends. It was Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
You are exactly right. You could not be more correct. The only guy who could finally bring all of the attention needed is the guy who flies around on the jet that he owns that's blacked out with elephant print all over it and a Jumpman logo on the tail feather. It is a great point, Jason, because when you think about, NASCAR itself, right, the fabric of NASCAR, for lack of a better term, it is an old boys club, right? It is old money. It is the same people who have been around for 50 to 80 years in some cases. They're still around today. They're still owning a team. It runs in a family, right? It's a very, you got to get in kind of business. And Michael Jordan has the outside power to overtake all of that. So I think it is an incredibly well-executed point. And quite frankly, it's what we're starting to see across sport, right? You see these, and it's not even the proverbial old boys club in every case, right? But you see new powerful energy with a different audience necessarily behind that energy, right? And it changes the fabric of sport. Look at Caitlin Clark and what's going on in the WNBA right now. Look at Shohei Ohtani and what's going on in Major League Baseball. This happens across sport. In Major League Baseball, we had to change individual rules of the game for Shohei Ohtani. The WNBA is suffering a lockout right now because they've gotten so popular in part due to Caitlin Clark bringing more eyes to the sport. This is what happens when you get these magnets to inject themselves into these leagues.
You had Steve Phelps, who's a NASCAR executive, calling people like Richard Childress, who is a staple of the sport, a stupid redneck. This is the sort of stuff that was coming out in Discovery. I'm going to tell you, this is why this thing ultimately had to settle. And I said this earlier in the week. The biggest danger to NASCAR wasn't winning or losing this thing. It was everything that was going to pour out into the public that, sort of put on display what NASCAR really thinks, not just of its own people, but what it thinks of its fans. And you had teams talking about losing money while NASCAR was lining its pockets every year. It wasn't sustainable. They were going to have to do something. Steve Phelps said about Richard Childress, he's a stupid redneck who should, quote, be taken out back and flogged. This is Richard Childress. This is one of the icons of the sport. So there's already been damage done to NASCAR and all of this. And again, kudos to Michael Jordan, because like I said, there were only a couple of people, Sam, that I think were capable. I'm not even a couple. I think it was him. I think he was the one guy capable of bringing this in. And one of the sticking points in all this, in this whole thing was, what was going to happen to these charters and what was going to happen, over the next several years. And it looks like it's going to work to the advantage of some of these racing teams, obviously now. But a lot of the details are still going to have to be worked out, and I'm sure we'll get more information on it in the coming days. And as we do, we'll obviously cover it. But hats off Michael Jordan, man. He brought... Yeah,
I'll tell you what, he famously a gambling man, right? And he had to take a gamble on himself in this case to actually be able to overpower this incredibly wealthy money machine that is NASCAR. And he did it. He won. Credit to him. You're exactly right, Jason.
Yep. He was the one guy that also had pockets deep enough from a legal standpoint that he could say, all right, fine. I'll go into my own pockets. And when he stood up, others around the sport stood up around him. But it took him launching the lawsuit for everybody else to stand up to NASCAR as well. Hats off to Michael Jordan. Odds and ends are next. All right. Before we wrap things up with odds and ends, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, and a whole bunch more. 45 minutes sitting there for you every early afternoon. Listen to what everybody else is watching. So we have that for you. Also, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you have not checked this out yet, it is all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. We've got the show there Monday through Friday, the TV version of the show. Commercial free. It's waiting for you. And a pro tip, you could usually catch it on YouTube early in the afternoon before you can watch it anywhere else. So I don't know what you're waiting for. Subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. In addition to the show being there, we have clips from the show, but even better, we have Sports Wrap shorts. These are 1 to 3 minutes long. When news breaks, we break right in on YouTube, and we have Sports Wrap shorts there. Quick clips, quick hitters, quick opinions, highlights from some of the biggest games at night as well. We had LeBron's crazy, insane dunk last night, which we'll get to in just a moment here in Odds and Ends. In a loss against the Spurs. Everything you need is on that Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Sports Wrap shorts are also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, on this Thursday, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. The semifinals are set. The Final Four for the NBA Cup in Las Vegas this weekend. Knicks and Magic in the first game on Saturday night, I believe, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Spurs and the Thunder. And as much as I wanted to see the Lakers and the Thunder play in one of those semifinals, I got to be honest, this is a better matchup. The Spurs are the Spurs are the Spurs. I had a text exchange with our buddy Stan Van Gundy last night, and I said to him, the foil for the next 10 years for the Thunder and the dynasty that they have the potential of being is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. That's it. It's a lock to me. I don't think it's Denver. I don't think it's the Lakers. I don't think it's Houston. The foil is going to be in their own conference, and it's going to be the San Antonio Spurs, Sam.
Yeah, and the Thunder still double-digit favorites in the game. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. This Thunder
because they
team,
don't know if Wemby's playing.
We were talking to Kurt Thielen about it yesterday. This Thunder team, I'm starting to convince myself they're going to set the record for most wins in a season. It is ridiculous. They are the epitome of inevitable. They are more inevitable than they were last year. It is incredible what this Thunder team is doing, man. They are squashing everybody.
The 74 win number is now plus 280. 74 or more is down to plus 280. The 75 plus, which yesterday was 680 when we talked to Kurt Thielen, is down to plus 450.
Yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to do it.
76 wins is at plus 750.
Bet it now.
77 or more is plus 1260. The only value now,
bet every number now.
The only value now really is 76 plus.
No, there's value everywhere.
75 plus is plus 450.
They are going to go for that record, and they're going to break it. If you can find a plus sign next to it, I might put every free bet I get on that bet until it cashes.
Fair enough. Maybe you want to bet on the Orioles being better next year. They signed Pete Alonso at the winter meetings, 5 years, $156 million. Orioles fans have been dying for that team to make a splash in free agency. They do it in this one, bringing in the polar bear, Sam.
The Orioles they're doing something this offseason. They're having the offseason everybody wished they would have had last offseason, because they're also rumored to be in talks with the Nationals for a potential Mackenzie Gore trade, which would be incredible for Baltimore. I think that the Orioles, they're trying to make this push, Jason Page. They're trying to become one of these gauntlet teams in Major League Baseball.
By the way, speaking of your Washington Nationals, I did not know they got Harry Ford.
Yes.
That's a great move for that team. They got Harry Ford, one of the top prospects in baseball, coming to the Washington Nationals. I love what they're building down there. By the way, the Mets didn't even make Alonso an offer.
I mean, they probably didn't have time. I mean, he signs this early into the offseason on December 11th for $5 and $150. Honestly, and I'm not saying this as a knock to anybody, but for that low of a number, you would have expected that he, especially with the other contracts that are rumored to have been out there, you would have expected him to wait at least another beat.
By the way, everybody in the AL East making moves except for the New York Yankees. Way to go, Brian Cashman. Sign me up for another year of Yankee baseball of 90 wins and a wild card spot. Atlanta and Tampa Bay is your Thursday night NFL matchup on Prime Video, Sam Yarnell. Buccaneers minus 4.5. Your total is 44.5. Does anything about this game excite you? Mike Evans, by the way, Mike Evans back for the Buccaneers tonight as well.
Yes, and there's another wide receiver who's back for the Bucs, and I cannot remember which one it is right now, because that is a loaded wide receiver. Matter.
Yeah, it's all right.
But regardless, which is why I lean over. Thank you for getting into my handicap. That is why I lean over. Bucs are finally getting healthy. Falcons, maybe they can finally score points with Kirk Cousins. I lean over. Number makes no sense to me. 4.5 on the Bucs should be a touchdown or more. It smells.
Yeah, I'm not touching it. But I like the over. I'm not touching. I'll tell you on the over. How's that? I'll tell you on the over. Running over to Stations Durango. Go put a bet there. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Bill Bender for joining us. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. Robert Lital on the show in his usual Friday spot tomorrow. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you later. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got SportsWrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half of as they're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.